Now to something you won't have heard about, not a word about this week. There's been zero mention of it in the media. One would hope it's because they recognise it's rather too shameful to speak of, but it's far more likely they simply do not care, do not consider the matter worth covering. But if this not worth talking about, what is? Last Tuesday, the Western Australian Legislative Council voted on an amendment which sought to mandate that babies born alive following a failed abortion be rendered the same care as any other premature babies. It may shock you to know that a baby surviving a termination procedure is not as uncommon as you might think. According to Queensland Health, from 2010 to 2020, there was a total of 1,153 late-term abortions, of which 328 babies were born alive. That's almost a third. According to Victoria's Consultative Council on Obstetrics and Paediatric Mortality and Morbidity from the same period, there was a total of 3,776 late-term abortions, of which 396 babies were born alive. That's a total of 724 babies born alive across just 2 states. One wonders what the numbers are across the nation. The truth is, we'll never know. Not all states are forthcoming with this data, which begs the question, just how many little fighters survive the procedure only to be left to die? According to the Child and Adolescent Health Service of Western Australia, the survival rate for babies born alive and admitted to a neonatal intensive care unit at 23 weeks is approximately 60% and rises to 80% at 24 to 25 weeks. This, of course, is relevant given we're talking about late-term terminations. To be clear, this has absolutely nothing to do with abortions. Whatever one's thoughts on abortion, reproductive rights, when life begins, surely we can all agree that any baby born alive ought to be given every chance of survival. And those who don't have a chance of survival, which are the majority, ought to be afforded palliative care so that they may pass having suffered as little as possible. How is this even a question in any civil society? Whether a helpless child ought to be rendered assistance rather than being left to die? How is it considered controversial in any way, shape, or form? Indeed, who among us doesn't find the very idea deeply, unthinkably disturbing? Well, WA's Labor MPs apparently. The Born Alive Amendment was defeated 9 to 23. Certainly in any other context, willfully leaving an infant to perish would rightfully be considered a clear-cut criminal offence. But WA's Labor MPs, with 2 exceptions in the Honourable Kate Doust and the Honourable Martin Pritchard, blocked this potentially life-saving amendment, deciding it's not necessary to enshrine into statute for those premmie babies what is already the right of every other Western Australian baby, and that is to receive medical care under the provisions of the Criminal Code. WA's Abortion Legislation Amendment Bill 2023 passed unamended on Wednesday. Provisions which would have included this care, which were included in South Australia's updated abortion law in 2021, were voted down. Even amendments recommended by the Australian Medical Association were voted down. The bill passed 6 to 25, but this is not over. Our Senate is set to vote on the same. The Human Rights Children Born Alive Protection Bill 2022, first introduced by George Christensen MP and now taken up by Senators Canavan, Antic and Babet, would provide federal statutory protection for all babies born alive in Australia. It would provide a legal framework to ensure equality of care for babies born after termination, and it would provide protection from prosecution for women who opt for long-term abortions. In January, House Republicans narrowly passed a bill, 2010 to 2000 210, that'd be nice, to 220 to achieve these ends in America. However, the Senate is yet to vote on said bill. Here in Australia, only time will tell if those we've elected on a federal level will recognise a child born alive as a child.